Mr. Blake?
Thank you very much for being here. A few top-line questions itself. As you know, the comptroller had a report and an audit that happened in July 2015, which highlighted several findings. Particular individuals that were on the waiting list were jumped without explanation, the inconsistencies in the methods being utilized, in the lottery process, et cetera. And there were several recommendations, but then also there was a response back from Commissioner Bean in terms of what were the recommendations in part. So it would be helpful to know your take on the findings that happened in the comptroller's report. You know, the specific example of Trinity Houses, where there was an individual that's number 82 on the list, but yet applicants 25, 31, 33 are all jumped without explanation itself. And then what is the status of you implementing the recommendations as requested by the comptroller?
Sure. So we actually have taken all of these findings very seriously, and we've conducted our own audits, and we've gone back, particularly in Trinity House, to canvass the list and to start over and to make sure that that people who are not skipped over. And so we've reached out, and we're making sure that particularly in Trinity House, that's going on. We've also implemented plans to make sure that when we now approve someone off a waiting list, the next person off the waiting list, if there's the numbers before were skipped and they were just simply marked no response, that we now require the managing agents to show proof that they did the mailing or that they contacted the applicants above. So so we're now requiring that the managing agents keep proof that they have that they've contacted the people above. The other big thing that we're doing, which we're just working with our IT people, as we speak, two new initiatives. One is that as a temporary method, we are planning on posting the number of the person on the waiting list that we've approved, the last person that we've approved. So we're hoping that over the summer that we'll have this implemented, that we'll say, for Trinity House, we just approved number 62 on this date. And that this way we'll be able, so someone can look on the site, on our Mitchell-Lama website and say, wait, but I'm 32 and I didn't get this. And so, we're publicizing this. And that we'll be open to hear if there's been, anyone has been skipped. The other piece that we're doing, which is a much longer term, but that we're excited to get the ball rolling on this, is that we're going to look to automate our waiting lists. So again, it's a lot. Takes a lot more manpower. It's a lot costlier. It requires the managing agent's input, but that's our longer term goal. What we've done starting in January, we've started doing our Mitchell-Lama waiting lists automated online. So we did one in January, and we have one going on as the lottery period is open until June 7th for East Midtown Plaza. So we're hoping that, again, by making it more accessible to people and having this, that this is the start of the process. So we're actually very excited about that.
Well, we have a piece of legislation, 9769, which we think can provide statutory changes in that same manner. But it's good to hear that there's progress being made in terms of the waiting list itself. Can you convey even approximate the number of buildings that you presume are nearing aging out from the Mitchell-Lama program that you oversee?
Well, so we have 96, 97 Mitchell-Lamas in our portfolio. They all have a tax exemption for as long as they want it. We, in the early 2000s, we extended for 50 years for every Mitchell-Lama that would want to seek an extension. So there's no one that's aging out that that cannot seek another exemption. We have 2/3 of the portfolio are locked in. Some are short-term lock-in, for 5 years or less, and others are, up to 30, 35 years. We're now doing our refinancings can go up to 35 years. So, so the more recent ones are that long. So we have about 2/3 of the portfolio are locked in.
And then final question, just can you explain to residents the practical differences in terms of the management style for a Mitchell-Lama that's a co-op versus a Mitchell-Lama that's a rental? I think people are always wondering, is there a difference in terms of how HPD assesses them, especially given what was found in the report?
Well, so there's actually a very large difference. A co-op is a board that's elected by its shareholders and has the fiduciary responsibility to make sure that the development is maintained well. So, and we take that. We want the board of directors to take that responsibility seriously, and we take that responsibility seriously. So, and we respect, that these are the shareholders have elected this as the board of directors. They appoint their managing agent, they appoint their corporate attorney, and their CPA. So, we have oversight, and we exercise that oversight, but the direct fiduciary responsibility is the board of directors. The rentals are owned by. It could either be a not-for-profit or by a corporation or a developer, and who retains its own. Often, most times, it's their own managing agent, their own firm, and and so again, we work with the managing agent, with the developer, and we work with in those cases we work with the tenants association. So. Whereas, in a co-op, we don't recognize the tenants association because there's an elected board, a duly elected board. But in a rental, we work with the tenant association.
Thank you.
Jaro, Mr. Linares?
Just wondering. Just thank you for your testimony. Just wondering, do you have in your portfolio any developments in Northern Manhattan?
I do.
Specifically Washington Heights, Inwood?
I do. I sort of have drawn a blank, and I apologize.
Inwood Towers, 17.
Yeah, so Inwood Towers is actually State MitchellLama.
Okay.
So a lot of the MitchellLamas up there are in the state portfolio.
And there's another one that I think just flipped and is the promenade on 225th Street.
Right, and that, again, that's a State MitchellLama.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you. Too slow. Timothy Tapia, Outreach Director, Office of the New York City Public Advocate. It's too slow. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman.
Are you allergic to MitchellLama back there? It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. That's why we're having the hearing right now.
Good evening, Chairman Wright and Assemblymember Blake, members of the Assembly Housing Committee and MitchellLama Subcommittee. My name is Timothy Tapia, once again, Director of Outreach for New York City Public Advocate Letitia James. Unfortunately, the public advocate couldn't make it here today to testify because of a conflict in her schedule. She asked me to read her testimony on her behalf. When Senator Mitchell and Assemblymember Lama proposed an affordable housing guarantee for our state, it was revolutionary. Unfortunately, the program that bears their name was not designed to last into the 21st century. But that doesn't mean we can't afford to give up. Now more than ever, we must preserve and grow our precious stock of affordable housing. Losing our affordable housing means losing our battle against income inequality, and we simply cannot afford to let that happen. In the 23-year period between 1955 and 1978, the MitchellLama program generated 135,000 units of affordable housing. But as the program initially terms ended, we have lost nearly 1/3 of those desperately needed units. We've also seen problems with procedures from filling vacant units, issues with transparency, building stocks being allowed to deteriorate, and significant rent increasing seamlessly at random. But the single most important issue is doing whatever it takes to keep MitchellLama buildings from exiting the program. As you know, it takes a supermajority vote by shareholders for a MitchellLama co-op to leave the program, and very few such attempts have succeeded because at the end of the day, residents want to stay in the program, but we cannot afford to lose any of these buildings. HPD has already entered into regulatory agreements with a number of co-ops to stop them from exiting the program, and I plan to work with them to make this agreement with every co-op. It cannot be overstated how importantly it is that we make sure that these regulatory agreements are permanent. It is also very important that we should secure the same permanence for our MitchellLama rental units. But even as we work together to keep these buildings on the road, We must also strive to ensure that the process governing existing units are fair and transparent. 3 separate audits by 3 separate agencies have shown that a startling number of these buildings are failing to comply with the rules for filling vacancies. There have been substantial charges of favoritism and nepotism, and this must stop. We need to put the waiting list online and make them accessible so that these inappropriate subversions of the process are ended for good. We must also go back and make sure that those people who got skipped are made whole and given the affordable housing that is rightfully theirs. We must also ensure that both buildings and the residents have the support they need and deserve. Too many Mitchell-Lama buildings, particularly co-op buildings, have been allowed to fall apart. Buildings with crumbling sidewalks, leaky roofs, and ancient water pipes, barely fit for habitation, have no prospects for improvement. We must invest in these buildings and make good and certain they are livable. That means returning to the days where HPD loans were forgivable, so as long as they were used for affordable housing. We also cannot forget to support the residents themselves. We must fight to restore HPD programs that provided much-needed trainings to the boards. This leadership void created by the untrained boards are unacceptable. Mitchell-Lama residents need to know and understand their options, and they need a board that can knowledgeably represent their interests. As we consider what we can do to preserve and maintain our Mitchell-Lama housing stock, we should also look into its history, particularly as we embark on an ambitious new program of affordable housing constructions. But the single most important lesson must be preserving affordability for as long as possible, ideally permanently. We can, must, and will fight to preserve affordable Mitchell-Lama units, but we must also work to design programs that will not require those that come after us to fight simply to preserve it. Mitchell-Lama is an essential program with much to teach us, and we cannot allow it to be regulated to the past, and we must fight to ensure that it has a long future ahead of it. Thank you so much to the chair and the committee members for inviting me here today to testify. I look forward to working with you all to support and preserve our Mitchell-Lama buildings and to create the next great program for ensuring that people can afford to stay and live in the greatest city of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tapia. Mr. Blake.
Mr. Tapia.
Mr. Tapia, we have a couple questions for you. Mr. Tapia got a...
Exactly.
Mr. Tapia...
Light on your feet, my friend. Light on your feet.
Mr. Tapia got a round of applause. Yeah. And Mr. Blake may have a couple of questions for you.
I mean, I just have one question, even though Mr. Tapia wants to drop the mic and walk off right now. But, first, express our gratitude to the public advocate and her leadership. Several of us were with her at the Mitchell-Lama Resident Coalition, and she's been a staunch advocate for many of our residents, so thank her for that. It would be good to know, I'm sure you all hear many concerns in your office. Specifically, what are the key concerns you hear the most as it relates to Mitchell-Lama in your office, so that we can make sure to document that and figure out a way that we can remedy?
One of the concerns that our office hear a lot is that folks that feel like they've been on the waiting list.
Can you speak up just a little bit?
Speak up, yeah. I don't think
Hello?
the people in the back can hear you.
Hello?
The red light.
Yeah, it's on. Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, it's all right.
One of the complaints that we hear a lot of times is when folks feel that they're being skipped. They feel that they've been on a waiting list for a long time, and they hear that folks jump the line. We have a Mitchell-Lama task force that met with the public advocate about a couple of months ago. They also stressed the fact that some of these apartments are in some horrible conditions, and working with management, they feel like management either doesn't provide them correct information of how to get these apartments fixed. So I would say those are the two main issues that our office have been hearing with Mitchell-Lama tenants.
Thank you.
Charo? Lenares? Now you can go.
Now you can go.
Now you can drop the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Tapia. Yeah, he's pretty good. Our next person to testify is Holly Chu, policy analyst on behalf of Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer. And The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you to Chair Wright and Chair Blake for the opportunity to testify. My name is Hallie Chu, and I'm a policy analyst at the Manhattan Borough President's Office. And today I'm just going to read the Borough President's testimony on her behalf. My name is Gail A. Brewer, and I am the Manhattan Borough President. Thank you to Assemblymember Keith Wright, Chair of Housing Committee, Assemblymember Michael Blake, Chair of the Mitchell-Lama Subcommittee, and to Assembly members of both committees for the opportunity to testify today. In my 12-year tenure as New York City Council member of District 6 on the Upper West Side, and now as Manhattan Borough President, I have seen numerous Mitchell-Lama developments exit the program once they became eligible to privatize under the provisions of Article 2 of the New York State Private Housing Finance Law. Tom Waters and Vic Bach, housing analysts at Community Service Society of New York, noted in their April 2015 policy brief that half of the Mitchell-Lama rentals and 7% of the Mitchell-Lama co-ops in the city have been lost as affordable housing as a result of developments exiting from the program. One of the challenges is long-term affordability, and in the interest of time, instead of reading the section, I want to direct you to the appendix at the back. That is the testimony to the City Council a few months back, and that further explained a lot of affordability issues. So next section, this is the Manhattan Borough President Mitchell-Lama Forum that was held on May 9, 2016. The forum was attended by over 100 people at 1 Center Street at the Borough President's office. I brought together a panel of state and city agencies, including HPD, HTC, and HCR, and representatives from each agency spoke on preservation and financing tools available to Mitchell-Lama developments and answered audience questions. The forum highlighted several issues that have increasingly become concerns for Mitchell-Lama residents. One is the Article 2 to Article 11 conversion. Some New York City supervised Mitchell-Lama co-ops have reconstituted as Article 11 co-ops and incorporated as HDFCs. HPD uses this as a preservation tool, offering an alternative to unregulated privatization for Mitchell-Lama co-ops already intent on exiting the program. Under Article 11, converted co-ops retain affordability for at least 30 years. Those who wish to purchase a unit in a converted building would need to meet income guidelines, currently set at 130% of AMI, and units that sell for over $100,000 would have to be reviewed by HPD. HPD and HCR, if state-supervised Mitchell-Lama co-ops are approved for a similar conversion process as well, must reserve Article 2 to Article 11 conversion only as a last resort to preserve the affordability of a development. As members of the Housing Committee know from my testimony on HDFCs in January, Article 11 HDFCs have their own set of challenges. Enforcement of Article 11's mandate to maintain HDFCs as housing affordable to low-income families has been inconsistent at best. Furthermore, Article 11 HDFCs are more market-driven than Mitchell-Lama housing. Many neighborhoods in Manhattan are considered hot markets with very high real estate values. In those areas, I have seen HDFC units sell for $500,000 or more, including a few over $1 million, even while the buildings are still HDFCs governed by Article 11. Will Mitchell-Lamas that become HDFCs go the same way if they are also located in high-priced zip codes? I urge the Committee on Housing and the Subcommittee on Mitchell-Lama to closely examine the implications of an Article 2 to Article 11 conversion and consider ways to better safeguard Mitchell-Lama affordability under Article 2 before a development is taken out of the program and converted into an HDFC. Succession policy. At the Manhattan Borough President Office Mitchell-Lama Forum, both HPD and HCR provided clarification on rules that govern the Mitchell-Lama succession process and how residents can ensure their children or other family members meet the program's succession criteria. Determining the assets of a successor with disabilities, however, remains outside of the purview of the Mitchell-Lama program. For example, a daughter receiving a disability subsidy that has an asset limit may lose her eligibility for that subsidy if, upon succeeding her parents as owner of a Mitchell-Lama co-op apartment, she exceeds the prescribed asset limit. This would effectively force a choice between housing and receiving the subsidies she needs for her care. Some residents in this situation are looking into establishing a special needs trust for their heirs with disabilities. Both HPD and HCR advise consulting an attorney based on the complexity of the matter. Since this issue impacts how eligibility may be determined for certain state subsidies, I believe this should also be an issue for the subcommittee on Mitchell-Lama to consider, particularly on how assets might need to be calculated differently for state benefits under special circumstances triggered by the succession of limited equity housing, such as Mitchell-Lama. Financing capital improvement needs. As Mitchell-Lama buildings age, low-cost financing becomes imperative for the rehabilitation and preservation of the housing stock. To date, HDC's Mitchell-Lama Preservation Program has issued over $900 million in bonds and over $454 million in subordinate financing to preserve more than 60 developments totaling 36,000 Mitchell-Lama units across the 5 boroughs of New York City. Additional financing via the Program for Energy Retrofit Loans and $96 million available through the New York City Build It Back program offer preservation incentives coupled with structural upgrades to increase energy efficiency and resiliency. On a state level, in April 2016, HCR released an RFP offering resources to finance high-quality projects that address the needs of low to moderate income individuals, families, and seniors. Of the total available funding amount, up to $42 million is allocated for the House New York Mitchell-Lama program, and up to $13.25 million for the Mitchell-Lama loan program. HCR's Housing Finance Agency will work with HDC and HPD to finance eligible projects. I thank my colleagues at the state level for allocating funding for Mitchell-Lamas in the fiscal year 2016 and 17 fiscal year state budget. This should only be the starting point for increasing resources toward Mitchell-Lama preservation. The total capital improvement needs among Mitchell-Lama developments far exceed the financing that has been made available. I can provide 2 illustrations from Manhattan. Lakeview Apartments, a state-supervised Mitchell-Lama rental in East Harlem, is estimated by its owner to have between $25 million and $30 million in capital needs. Governor Gardens, a city-supervised Mitchell-Lama co-op, received $350,000 in financing from HDC several years ago to repair its stairwells, but estimates that it still has another $7 to $8 million worth of rehab work, including repairing its water tanks and upgrading its water mains and piping. The $32 to $38 million of capital needs between these 2 developments alone is almost the entire amount of the House New York Mitchell-Lama program. As both New York State and New York City continue to allocate resources to fund various affordable housing needs, adequate funds must be directed toward the rehabilitation and preservation of Mitchell-Lama housing. So in summary, in light of the decreasing supply of Mitchell-Lama housing in New York City and the challenges of preserving the affordability of what remains, I urge members of the Committee on Housing and the Subcommittee on Mitchell-Lama to examine Article 2 to Article 11 conversion and consider the full impact on long-term affordability of this policy when a development is taken out of Mitchell-Lama and reconstituted as an HDFC. To examine the apartment succession as an issue that increasingly concerns Mitchell-Lama residents. Look into different scenarios that may affect a successor's eligibility to receive other subsidies, and to advocate for increased resources toward repairing and preserving Mitchell-Lama housing. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And please thank the Manhattan Borough President for that exhaustive report, comprehensive report. And I have a question. You may not have the answer to it, but I certainly want to get it on the record. I mean, we all agree that we must preserve our Mitchell-Lama developments, but quite frankly, they're all in dire straits. Let's be clear. They're all in dire straits. My mother, my 96-year-old mother, actually lives in one in Esplanade Gardens. Tracy Towers, a development here in the Bronx, has just suffered a 62% increase, which is mind-boggling to me, which is absolutely mind-boggling. Now, so I'm asking you, maybe take these things back to the borough president, who I think has been a champion on this issue, that we can come together and try and figure out some solutions, not only for the state-run developers, but also for the city-run developers. Thank you so much for your testimony. Anybody? Mike?
I just have
one more.
If I can get my mic working. Just a very quick question in terms of the Article 11 to Article 2 conversions. How is it possible to sell these individual units almost up to, if not past $1 million, considering, is it a proportional issue? Is it a cap issue? What exactly is going on to be selling these developments at such astronomical prices?
So there are several factors, and the ones that are referred to in the testimony is a HDFC that was converted, not from an Article 211, but it's just an HDFC that incorporated under the Business Corporation Law.
Okay.
So that particular one is located in a very desirable neighborhood in Manhattan and has an income limit. So income limit can mean, I guess one example that the borough president always likes to use is if a single professional who either is a student or just newly graduated doesn't have a lot of income or asset, but might get a lot of gifts or support from parents or other people to help them purchase. So in terms of having people willing to purchase at a certain price, then the prices keep being driven up. So that was what happened with that particular example that was referred to.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank the borough president as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Linares, anything? Nope. All right, thank you so much. Thank you. Our next testifier, we have two folks, I guess. One, both from the Cooperators United for Mitchell-Lama, Adele Niederman, who is the president, and I guess we're asking for, just for convenience sake, I see Ms. Janine Poindexter is here as well. Yes. Would you mind both going at the same time?
You want us both speaking?
Since you're both from the same organization.
Yes, that'll be fine.
That'll be okay? Thank you.
Okay.
And I don't have your testimony, but you don't have to read either. You can talk it through if you want, yeah.
What are your preferences?
Well, if I read, then I may be more concise, and I will not forget what I need to say. But first, I want to thank you for having this hearing, for bringing the public in, for bringing our administrators in, and thank you to the chair, Assemblyman Keith Wright.
You're welcome. And
to Assemblyman Michael Blake, and good to meet the other members of the committee, Mr. Sepulveda, who's left, and Assemblyman Pichardo, and Mr. Guerrero
Linares.
My name is Adele Niederman. I am a Bronx-born baby. I grew up in the Northeast Bronx, and Fordham Road is where I went to spend my allowance. I remember when Alexander's was there,
Remember that?
and I told all of my friends I'm going to the Fordham Library, not the Bronx Reference Center, because when I was here, that's where it was, and it was on Bainbridge Avenue, a few blocks away. But I am also president of Cooperators United for Mitchell-Lama, which is a voluntary grassroots group of people who live in Mitchell-Lamas. We're shareholders, we're cooperators, and we are committed to preserving Mitchell-Lama. I recently testified in February at the hearing at the Harlem State Office Building, again chaired by Assemblyman Keith Wright. And I want to let you know about their tremendous pressures on people that live in the Mitchell-Lama developments. In my neighborhood, a Mitchell-Lama that departed the program in 2009 are selling my two-bedroom apartment, one bath, for over $1 million. Okay? These are people, when they bought into the Mitchell-Lama and moved in, maybe they purchased when I first moved in. I don't even remember how much money it was, maybe $5,000. They're walking away with over $1 million of taxpayer money. And I think that is terrible. Right? The agencies may say, well, there's nothing we can do. It's a delicate balance. There are boards of directors. They've been duly elected. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe, maybe not. But these are pressures that we are asking people, and the people who watch paycheck to paycheck, paying all their bills, we're saying to them, you turn down that money. And it's hard. It's hard for a person who doesn't have the money to turn it down. And it's not right that this law stands because of a attraction they were trying to bring in the developers for the rentals. They inadvertently included the cooperatives. And so that was allowed. And the law needs to be revised, to be changed. And I could say one more thing. We talk about the HDFC refinancing, which is great. We've heard the HDFC speaker. We brought him to our meeting, and people were practically jumping out of their skins with the grants and the loans and the refinancing that they were offered. My board of directors refuses to recognize that. They will not tell the shareholders that this exists. We are currently going through a feasibility study, and I'm telling you that the lawyers and the accountants and the appraisers that come in to prepare these studies will bend the study to meet the requests of the board. And the board has a study because they want to go private. They say, what kind of study do you want? Do you want a one-page down and dirty, or do you want a 30-page report? And I can fix the numbers if you want. I've heard it. I've sat in these interviews. So these pressures exist, and we're asking that there be something done about it. Many are intimidated to vote, to give up their proxy, to vote for these feasibility studies and these offering plans. I've suggested in earlier testimony that we must do something to firm up the proxies, the way they're collected, and the abuses of the boards of the directors and the management companies that walk hand in hand with them because they're hired by the board. So anything that's going on in a co-op is because the board of directors either wants it or allows it. But yet, the Mitchell-Lamas are an excellent example. We have 88 distinct developments with over 64,476 units that continue to remain in the program. And fewer than 10% of the original co-ops have left the program. We are stable communities, we are diverse communities, and we are an anchor in our neighborhood. And many of these buildings were built, I know in Manhattan, in the urban renewal areas. We've been there, we've maintained. No one leaves unless they're going out through somebody's carrying them out, unfortunately. Well, I don't want to get too graphic, but that's what it is. We need better oversight of the management companies, of the boards of directors to prevent these abuses and the rush to privatize. And we need to stop demonizing the residents. And we need to stop saying that it's all because of their abuses. The abuses of the boards and the management companies are worse. Okay? We, as our elected representatives, you know the laws that we're talking about. We want to prohibit dissolution. We want to declare 4-year moratoriums between each time. In some developments, there's a resolution, a vote every year on whether or not to privatize. And we want to prevent that because it's exhausting. And I'm going to say thank you from my family, from my sons, from my husband. For 46 years, I've lived in Mitchell-Lama. I've lived at Masaryk Towers for 10 years, and now at St. Martin's Tower for 40 years, or I've lost track of the number of years. And from my sister also, lives in Mitchell-Lama. But remember, our homes are not commodities to be sold on the open market, the way the privatizers are coming at us. We support shared equity and cooperative ownership and democratic ownership. We want legislative protection from all of this profit-making that's going on. People may have scree or dree, and when there's an offering plan, when they're privatizing, they usually write that in to protect the people who are currently in scree or dree. But someone who has not aged into the program yet, maybe 2 years down the line, they will not be covered by the offering plan if the building privatizes. So talking about scree and dree being there to protect people, it's gone once they privatize. Private thing, There's no way of taking care of them. We have to prevent warehousing in that place, that building in my neighborhood that privatized. They warehoused apartments. Now, they double talk. They said they didn't warehouse. They've been able to keep the maintenance artificially low and pay for improvements because they're selling apartments that are rentals on the open market at over $1 million a pop. So it's just, what can I say? It's not right. It's not good public stewardship of our affordable housing. It went out of my mind. But thank you for letting us come and talk. Jean.
Thank you, Ms. Wonders.
I'd like to say just a few words. I've got 2 pages of testimony. It's been presented, and I would love to have you read it, and I'd like to know that you're reading it.
Oh, we will.
Okay. Because I liked your invitation. I came here to listen to and comment on your stated concern about, as you wrote, how the legislature can promote the longevity of Mitchell-Lama developments. And I'm happy to see that you say can. You didn't say could. Can indicates that you're hopeful, and could would mean it was contingent on some factors that we don't know yet, okay? So you didn't put in a subjective, and I applaud your positive attitude.
Thank you. Thank you. We will read your testimony. Let me just say this.
I just want to make 2 points out of my
Oh,
testimony.
that's fine. Sure.
Okay. My major point is that Mitchell-Lama housing was created as not-for-profit housing, and it's still known as the not-for-profit housing law. Okay. But when they put a time limit on how long the not-for-profit operation was going to be enforced, they undermined the security of Mitchell-Lama co-ops because they became insecure at that time. And when that cap that came off of the restriction, the rentals ran away because a single person could pull them into the market. But if it takes a lot of people to say, I want to give up my security, then you don't get that kind of support. And so the only 8 of the co-ops have gone out since 2007, okay? They did not jump at the chance, and they fight every time they vote on whether to privatize. So it has never really been clearly expressed that Mitchell-Lama housing is not-for-profit housing, and that's what we should be paying attention to. If you want to promote longevity of a Mitchell-Lama housing, then you need to have laws that will support our not-for-profit operation. And that means, number 1, eliminate the possibility of privatization of a Mitchell-Lama co-op. There are some unintended consequences of those, of allowing us to consider privatization. One of them has to do with the requirement of a primary residence service on the part of the apartment. Because there is a primary residence requirement, but there's also the possibility that you can buy the shares and not even live there, that we suffer from the consequences of phantom shareholders, which results in familiar consequences, including physical deterioration of the unit, hazards to nearby units and neighbors, and the attractiveness of unoccupied units for criminal activities. And we know this goes on, and we would like to prevent it, but as long as you can buy shares and not live there, we have no control.
Thank you.
Those are the kinds of things we'd
Very
like
well
to see
understood.
appeal.
Let me just say this, and I thank you for your points. I thank you both very much, and we will read every member of this panel and beyond, the folks on the Housing Committee, the folks on the Mitchell-Lama Subcommittee will be reading comprehensively all of the testimony. That's why we're here. And also, and let me just say that I think this is probably groundbreaking that we are having this committee meeting in the Bronx. I don't know of too many housing committee meetings that we've had in the Bronx since I've been the chair for the last 3 years. Anyway, so I want to, let me just say this, and the reason we have these hearings is so that these folks here and myself can come up with ideas for legislation. We as legislators don't have all the ideas. I know you must think that we are the smartest folks in the world. No. But I find that my job is much easier, and I'm sure that these folks find that their job is much easier when they listen to folks that are really directly affected about situations that we are concerned about. So that's why we're here, and we are listening very intently. Thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you for the opportunity.